What's up, guys? This is Brave, and I'm back with another review of Ready to Love. This is season 4, episode 4, and the episode is titled Sipping Wine, Spilling Tea. Let's go ahead and get into this episode. So, we open up with all the ladies meeting up at the ladies' lounge because, as we know, it is their turn to be in control. And while they have control, Tommy lets them know that their task for this week is to dig deeper, to, really try to start and have a foundation and connection with these guys and see what they're all about. And some of the ladies did that. And some of the ladies, to me, did more talking than learning about the guys. But let's go ahead and start talking about these dates. So the first date that we get is Joel and Vernisha. So first of all, I just want to say Joel clearly does well for himself. His house was really nice. I did not expect it. I don't know what I expected, but his house looks really nice. Vernisha, she shows up and she has on a little crop top sweater and it looked like some leggings or something, and I'm like, okay, she has a body on her. Okay, curves for days. So when she walked in the door, he's like, you want to know what she felt like to me? Something about something in a Zulu bar, and she was soft and warm and don't let me go. I was like, okay, sir, clearly you are really feeling Vernisha. So he fixed her breakfast, and she ended up asking him, oh, well, what you got planned for the rest of the day? And he's like, oh, I'm building something, or his outside deck or whatever he was building, or outside kitchen, I think. And she's like, oh, so you're good with your hands and stuff. And he's like, well, when I was married to Courtney, I would do these types of things. And then he was pretty much getting to the fact that, once she passed away, he kind of stopped doing that. And now I think he's finally getting back into the rhythm of, building things with his hands and stuff. And I just realized that, I feel like he's going to bring up his ex-wife. Not his ex-wife. His wife that passed a few times, because like he said, she's a part of his story. And I just feel like there's a difference in bringing up, someone's ex and the person ain't together no more, versus bringing up someone who has passed away. So I just hope that Vernisha would be comfortable with that, because you guys know what I'm saying? She didn't, it's not like he ended this with a breakup. You know what I mean? She literally passed away unexpectedly from cancer. So there may be times where he may bring up his wife, I can't say ex-wife, what is it, deceased wife. And I just hope that Vernisha doesn't feel some type of way, or whatever lady that he ends up with may feel some type of way because he brings her up. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, he goes on to say how, with her passing, it changed him. So Vernisha asks him, well, did it change you for the better or for the worse? And he's like, I don't know. All he knows is that it changed him. And I completely understand what he's saying, because sometimes when you lose somebody, some areas you grow in, and then there are some areas that you are like, wait a minute, I'm going backwards in life. Just because it alters how you move. You know what I'm saying? So he is saying that he is still open to love and finding somebody, and they clearly seem to really like each other. I am going for Joel and Vernisha. I really hope that they make it to the end. I really hope that they, are an actual couple, because these last couple of seasons of this show, by the time we get to the reunion, ain't nobody together. So I'm really hoping for these two, because she even mentioned, I can see us blending our families together. And I feel like that's a big statement for her to make, considering, she's always been about what's right for her girls. And also, she even asked him, oh, well, what do you like about me? And his response was that basically, because I'm about to rephrase this, even though you had to go through hardships when it came to being a mom with your kids, you did what you had to do to provide for them. And that was, something that drew me to you. And I think that what he means by that is, you're not some weak link woman. She's smart. She knows how to get things done. Like, baby girl she's really it. When you really think about it, like, I feel like any woman who has had to be like a single mother and, figure out how she's about to move and operate to provide the best possible situation for her kids. Like, I'm all for that type of woman because it's hard. It is very hard to be a single mother and have to do everything on your own. So I don't know. I just really like that he even gave her props on that. I mean, Bernicia does say that, he's kind of like the main connection that she has made so far. I don't want her to put herself in a box just because he's not. But I do see these two going far. So we'll see what happens with these two. Let's go ahead and talk about the next date that we saw. Okay, so now we have a date with the thirsty Alexis and the creep that is Troy. This date was actually pretty interesting to me for a couple of reasons. So we actually start off with Alexis talking in her confessional about how basically Troy has been running game between all of the ladies, talking about he gonna, take her on a trip for her birthday. Come to find out, he done told all the ladies that he gonna take them on some type of trip. And I'm like, finally, this man's lies are, catching up with him. So Alexis comes in, he ends up giving her like a kiss on like the side of her face or whatever. And he's over talking about how, this made his day and all this stuff. But she was already on one when she came in. So she's just like, really? Like, like she kind of give him a little attitude. So at this point, he realizes that he must have done something wrong. And she calls him out and is like, dude, you've basically been telling all the ladies the same things. And he has also been telling a lot of the ladies that they're his number one pick. And of course, he's going around kissing everybody on the cheek, on the forehead, anywhere he can put his damn lips. And I mean, throughout this whole time that she's telling him all this stuff that she's calling him out on, like, she's just like running down a list. Like, this is what you do. You do this, you do that. And I mean, all he could do was sit there really and be like, oh, I did that? I don't recall doing that. Like, dude, let's not play this game. First of all, you're on a TV show. We saw you do all of these things multiple times. And the fact that he tried to deny kissing her on this day right here that they met up, she's like, you just kissed me on my cheek or forehead, wherever. And he's like, I didn't kiss you today. I'm like, dude, if you don't get your old ass up out of here with these lies, like, you literally just did this, and you probably feeling some type of way because she calling you out about all this. And then when she said, well, I need for you to, tell me about all these, kissing on the cheek and all this stuff, he's like, that's just not me. I'm like, sir, I know you're not. I know you're not about to sit up here and lie like this, talking about it's not you. You gave us a whole speech about how that's my signature move, remember? Oh, you forgot that quick. Okay, Troy. And the fact that he went on to say that none of the ladies flinched and they acted like they liked it. I was floored that he said that because I'm like, sir, you are a creep. I don't know how many other women you have probably done all types of things to. That was some real, like, Me Too type statement. No, absolutely not. Troy gotta go. Troy has to go right now. Like, at the moment, right now. Troy has to go. Because I felt uncomfortable with him making that statement. Oh my God. Moving on. Just completely moving on. So we next have a date with Chris and Amber. And they go to like this boxing ring. And he's like, oh, what have you, fight for my love and all this stuff. The date was really cute. She ends up opening up to him more than he had to open up with her. Because, Tommy did say for them to dig deeper and see what these guys are about. But I feel like we learned more about her than we did about him. So Amber opens up and tells him how, she's actually a DA, how she was adopted when she was 5 and recently got, back in contact with her biological sister. And she has a lot of things that have happened to her in her past. And to see that she, was able to be a DA at the age of 31, that is amazing. Amber actually has surprised me because when we first met her, I thought she was just, boring. But I feel like she definitely has a lot of layers to her. I did like the flow of her and Chris. Chris was saying how, it doesn't bother him that she's a DA and that, he's there to support her and be a companion and all those types of things. I like these two together. I don't hate it at all. Hopefully, things will flourish for them, but we'll see how this show goes. But so far, I do like Amber and Chris together. So the next date that we have is actually David and Stacy. And yeah, this date just wasn't really that good because they ended up going to go do Pilates or whatever. She was practically the instructor. And once they start having a conversation, I'm like, yeah, these two, not a match. Because as we know, David is looking for marriage, not just, a girlfriend. And he brought up the conversation of, knowing each other's passwords, to your phone and stuff. And she's like, oh, well, that's a red flag to me because basically she's saying that she needs her privacy. His point is that, when you're married, you become one, everything should basically be an open book. But to her, she's like, there's some things that I want to keep to myself. Like if I have a journal, I will want to keep that to myself. Now, I completely understand her saying that if I'm journaling, I will want that to be my own personal thing. As far as David goes, again, he wants everything to be open. So after that whole conversation, I feel like they both realized that they are not a match. I don't think that they're on the same level at all. So I'm glad they got that out of the way early. So now we get a double date between Alexis and Jason and Liz and AJ, right? First things first, these ladies came for two different events. Liz is dressed completely down. She has on a jacket, some jeans, and some sneakers. Oh, but then we get to Miss Alexis Fly. And baby girl has on denim booty shorts, thigh-high boots with this little denim shirt. I'm just like, girl, first of all, where you going? Secondly, I don't know what's wrong with Houston, but do they only sell these super tall boots? I mean, I feel like all these ladies own a couple of pairs of knee-highs and thigh-high boots, and they have just been wearing them out this season. But anyways, they have these two groups playing a game of cornhole, and Liz is killing it. Alexis, not so much. And then they, of course, after they play this game, they break up and, go on their separate ways for their dates. So let's go ahead and talk about Alexis and Jason first. First of all, he says in his confessional that it's hard for him to separate, her being a parent versus someone that he can be dating. I'm like, dude, just call a thing a thing. You don't like her. I've already said this since day one. He don't like Alexis like that. He keeping her in his back pocket just in case, things don't work out with Kyra. But I don't think he like Alexis like that. His body language in this scene alone let me know that. Also, he asked her, oh, what do you think about what we should do on our one-on-one time or something like that. And she was like, oh, time is one of my love language. No, she said time is my love language. And I said, excuse me, wasn't it just physical touch when you were talking to AJ last week? Girl, bye. So at one point, she ends up talking about something about the time, that time in a month. And I'm like, I don't even know where this story is going. We didn't get the ending to that because I ended up cutting back to AJ and Liz, who I'm about to talk about. And that was pretty much that. I think I can officially say Jason don't like Alexis like that. Alexis, move on. Move around. Find somebody else, because it's not Jason. He is definitely feeling Kyra, though, but not you. So when it comes to AJ and Liz, though, when they're having their conversation, she basically put it out there that, how does he feel about sex before marriage? And he's like, he was kind of hesitant a little bit, which further let me know that, girl, move along. He ain't the one. He ain't the one. Go ahead, go find David. Like, watching AJ and Liz, I will say that I understand where he's like, he could try to, make that work, but we all know that he ain't. I think that she has found her person, which was David, because hearing how David speaks and how Liz speaks, they are more so on the same playing field than I think that she is with any of the other guys. Or at least that's what it seems like here, because AJ is like, he would rather, make sure that him and whoever he's going to be with, they match each other sexually. So, yeah, sorry to tell you, Liz, you might have to move along to somebody else, because AJ is not your guy. So the next date that we see is actually two people that we did not see go on a date last week. It is Chrysanthemum and Ron. We did not see either one of them go on dates last week, so it was good to see them this week. They meet up somewhere where they're playing games like Connect 4 and Jenga, and they were vibing with each other. I honestly did not expect this at all. Those are two people I did not expect to even go on a date. So I was surprised. So when they start having like a conversation, well, a real one, he basically opens up to her about how he went to jail when he was 18. He grew up being the oldest, not really having any guidance, and how he just kind of fixed his life, figured out that he needed to go to college, and make something of himself. And then they went on to talk about what type of man that, she actually wants. And she's like, well, I want a provider, a protector, someone I can have a good time with. And honestly, I feel like, Ron and her, like, they were actually vibing, and they were more so on the same page, rather than, how he had that conversation with, I think it was Andrea or whatever, about her, quitting her job and taking care of kids. I would not be surprised if Chrysanthemum would be like, oh yeah, that's fine for me to quit my job and take care of the kids. I feel like when we first met Chrysanthemum, she, like I said, she had that take it or leave it attitude, but I definitely think that this was a softer side of her throughout this date. All right, so we finally get a date with David and Liz, who I thought was going to go on a date last week when they were on dates with Vernisha and Joelle. So while they're on this date, he just opens up about how growing up, he was raised in a very strict household. His mom seemed to be very Christian and super religious. So when he went off to college, he kind of strayed away from God and he left the church. But he found his way back. And of course, Liz, she loves that because she is someone who has a deeply rooted spiritual background. So he then asked her about, what about you? And she opens up to him about how she has not been in a serious relationship in 17 years. Now, she did clarify the fact that, she's been in some situationships. She's probably dated a few people, but she has not been in a serious, committed relationship in 17 years. And David was actually very understanding. He even talked about how, he sees her as like this safe place when he's having conversations with her. They're really digging each other. And they even had a conversation about how, what happened within his last marriages, because he has been married twice. The first time, he wasn't really ready to be a husband. The second time around, his wife actually walked out on him. And he just wants to, make sure that the third time actually works for him. And that, the person doesn't just up and decide to walk out and leave like the last one did, which is understandable. So
I think that, David and Liz seem to be more of a match than, all these other dates that they have been going on. Like, when I looked at Liz and Joelle, or even Liz and AJ, I'm like, that don't really look right. Because I feel like there was no real connection like she has with David. And the same for David, actually. Like when David was out on a date with Vernisha, or even when who was he with just now? Stacy. I'm like, nah, that's not the move. But him and Liz, it works. Alright, so it's time for all the ladies to meet up at the ladies' lounge and talk about who they're feeling and who they're not feeling. So Tommy goes around the room and asks pretty much each lady, how was their date that they went on. So we start with Vernisha, and she is like blushing, talking about Joel and how, he made breakfast and he had flowers and all this stuff. And I mean, we could already see she is really into Joel. The next lady that he asked, I believe, was Liz. He asked Liz next, and she didn't even mention the date with AJ. But she talked about David. She talked about how, they connected, him being a church boy, her being a church girl. And, maybe this is God trying to tell them something. Yeah, so she's feeling David. Then we have Amber. She talks about how she went out with Chris. They have similar backgrounds, and there's just a flow with them. That's her words, and she's telling the truth. They do flow well together. And the last person that we talked to about their date is going to be Chrysanthemum. Of course, she's like, the guy surprised me, but it's Ron. I'm really feeling him. She started blushing as well. So I'm like, okay, we did not expect that to happen, but she's feeling him. Let's see where it goes. One thing I did want to say was that we didn't get to see Tressa and Dietrich go on their date. And I was really excited about seeing this. And we didn't even get that this week. So hopefully we get it next week. So let's talk about who the ladies are not feeling. And the first person to pipe up is Stacy. She goes on to talk about how, this is so difficult for her because she really likes this guy. And she went out with Dave. I said, girl, who is Dave? His name is David. But anyways, she went out with David, of course, as we know. And she lets the ladies know that, he wants to know all your passwords. He wants to know the password to your social media, all your bank account information, all of this and all of that. I'm like, girl, you are putting 20 on 10. What are you talking about? What he was saying was that, hey, if we're married, am I going to be able to have access to your, social media accounts or anything like that? And you took it to a whole nother level, talking about bank account information, all this stuff. And it's like, okay, girl, if you are married to somebody, you usually would have at least one joint account together. I'm not saying that you cannot have separate accounts as well, but usually you would have a joint account the same way you probably had a joint account with that ex-husband of yours, because I'm pretty sure, considering he was the NBA player or basketball player, he was making all the money. Let's not play this game, Stacy. So here she goes again, like I've said previously, building up a case on David to turn all the ladies off about him, the same way she did to Christian. I'm sorry, I'm just not feeling Stacy. And then for Tommy to join in on the conversation, talking about that's him bringing, all his baggage and all his drama from the past relationship into this one. And I'm like, first of all, if anyone has listened to David, every time that man talks, he is not coming from the perspective of, we're just going to be dating. We're just going to be boyfriend and girlfriend. He is always talking from the point of view of a marriage. He clearly wants to get married. So anytime he talks, he's saying, past that boyfriend and girlfriend stuff, once we're married, how are we going to work? How are we going to move? Come on now. I don't think he was trying to bring in any baggage or drama from his past relationship. I'm sorry, but that just really frustrated me, because I'm like, Tommy, you don't even know what you're talking about, because now you sound dumb because you out here listening to Stacy over here putting, oh my gosh, so much on it when that wasn't even what he was saying. Also, I love the fact that we did get a confessional from Liz saying that she was not swayed by what Stacy had to say, and that, she understood where David was coming from. Because as she realized, because she has some good common sense, she's still talking from the point of marriage. She knows that David is talking from the point of marriage. Like, we all should know at this point, because that's just how he talks, and that's absolutely fine, because like I've already said, he is looking for a wife, not a girlfriend. So they end up saying, who else was it? Oh, a lot of people said Troy. As we all know, I have been ready for Troy to go home, because he done promised all these girls trips for their birthday. He done kissed all on them. Just nasty, just a creep. I was just so glad that all these ladies have opened up their eyes and realized that Troy is a dog, Troy is a creep, and Troy should have went home day one. Y'all should have kept Christian around and sent Troy packing day one, okay? So when it comes to who the ladies are not feeling, it is David and Troy. So they have Stacy meet up with Troy and had Amber meet up with David, to see who was going to go home. So in the conversation that Amber had with David, she just says, some of the ladies feel like you're bringing your past into your relationships today because you want to know passwords and all these things in a relationship. So he's like, well, actually, I know exactly where that came from. That came directly from Stacy, because that is who I had this conversation with, and it was completely misinterpreted. So I'm mad that they kind of like jumped the screen to Stacy and Troy, because I wanted to hear like his full response. But he was basically saying like, in a marriage, because that's what he has to keep reiterating, in a marriage, I don't feel like, if you ask me for my password, you can have it because I have nothing to hide. Which makes sense. So then you have Amber go back to the fact of, oh, well, we think that you're going to be bringing your past into any new relationships. And like he said, my past is what made me. My past is what shaped me into the person that I am today. So it is what it is. Like, I'm going to bring up my past because that is who made me who I am. So y'all can either take it or leave it, pretty much. Like, I really hate the fact that Amber took what Tommy said and then tried to use that against David. And I'm like, that's not even what y'all even thought. Like, that is Tommy's thoughts, because he thought that Stacy was saying something when what Stacy said wasn't even true. Like, just a bunch of mess that was unnecessary. So then we get to Stacy and Troy, and I don't even know what was happening, because they kept jumping the screen between David and the David conversation and the Troy situation. And when it came to Troy, like at one point, all I know is that he said, yeah, I woke up and was like, who is that guy? And I'm like, wait, so you about to pretend like you wasn't out here promising trips and kissing everybody? Really, Troy? I'm sorry, just get the man off the screen. Troy went home. Thank God he got sent home. That was the highlight of the entire episode. And that was pretty much it, you guys. Let me know what you guys thought about this episode. I know that we are all happy that Troy went home, but let me know what you guys thought about that whole Stacy and David situation. Who do you guys think are going to make it to the end? Next week, it looks really good. I want to see what happens. Go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. And you can actually share my video with your friends. And I will talk to you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.